This is block design, the very first subtask on the WISC-V. And in this video, I'm just going to be showing you guys very briefly how to set up what is arguably the most complicated administration on the WISC-V if you are doing it by hand. So to get started, all you need to administer the block design portion of the WISC-V is your administration and scoring manual. You need your block design blocks that I have already opened. You need your stimulus book 1. You need your record form. And the only thing that is missing from here that you would also need is your stopwatch. That is whether you're using an actual stopwatch or your cell phone. So, excuse me, in order to get started, we obviously need to go ahead and take a look at our administration and scoring manual. Now, this administration and scoring manual, just like the WISC version, has these convenient tabs located here on the inside. And the first one we're going to want to flip to is the one that is labeled Subtest Administration. So if we flip that open, besides our instructions here in the beginning, the very first page that we would flip to is the one that is labeled Block Design. Now you can feel free to pause the video here if you would like to be able to read all of that in its entirety. But it basically gives you the general instructions for what you would need in order to administer block design to a child. One of the first things that needs to be taken into consideration when you are thinking about administering block design to your child is two things primarily. One, do they have the actual physical capabilities, that is the fine motor skills needed in order to actually physically manipulate the blocks? You also need to find out whether they are primarily left or right-handed, because that is going to determine how you are to set up this particular subtest for your client. So for our example, we are going to go ahead and just assume that the client in this case is a right-handed individual. And located on page 80 of your administration and scoring manual, you will find a convenient little graph here that kind of gives you a visual representation of how you should really try to set up your block design for a child that is either left-handed or a child that is right-handed. So in this example, we are going to go ahead and assume that our client in this case is a right-handed child. So according to our graph, what we would actually need to do is we need to set up first our stimulus book here, which, much like the WISC, has these convenient little tabs down here on the bottom that label all of these subtests. And so we are going to go ahead and grab the block design and open it up, which you'll notice is blank. Now, assuming that our child is set up directly in line with our camera here, according to our administration and scoring manual, we actually need to have our model set up slightly to the right. According to the model, it's about 7 inches from where the table, assuming this was on a table, would end, and where this actually begins. So we would set up our stimulus book, again, slightly to the right, and then when we actually go ahead and get out our blocks, we would end up setting up our blocks and the model that we would show for the child directly to the left of that stimulus book. Now, from there, what we are going to do is, I'm kind of skipping some of the other just kind of things to keep in mind, and we're actually going to talk about what you need to do and what you need to say for the actual administration portion of this. I'm going to move this just a little bit closer. So once you have your stimulus book set up, your instructions for block design begin on page 86 of the administration and scoring manual. Now, regardless of whether the individual is 6 years of age all the way up to 16 years of age, your administration and what you say remains the same. And that is, again, very similar to the WISC. You would place 2 blocks here in front of the child, and you would say, do you see these 2 blocks? They are all alike. On some sides, they are all red, and you would show the individual the red side. Some sides are all white, and you would show them the white side. And on some sides, they are half red and half white. So you would show them the half red and half white, portion of the block. Now from there, what really depends is the client's age in terms of our start point. So we will go ahead and start as if, in this case, the individual is anywhere from between the ages of 6 and 7 years old, in which case the client starts right at item number 1. So for item number 1, what it says that we would end up doing is we would end up placing 2 blocks in front of the child. So we would actually put it over here in front of our model. And it says we would turn to stimulus item 1, which is going to be this one here. And what you would say is you would point to the book and you would say, watch me make my blocks look just like this. You would then, as the examiner, physically manipulate these blocks to look exactly like the picture. You would then take 2 separate blocks, separate from the ones that you have already put down, and you would place them over here in front of the child. And you would say, now you make one like this. Work as fast as you can and tell me when you are finished. Go ahead. And you would then start your timer. The time limit for these first ones are 30 seconds. So the child would have 30 seconds to manipulate their blocks, to make them in the correct portion. And then, just like in the WISC, they would say, done. Now from there, if they have the correct design, you would want to take the blocks away. You would not have to administer trial 2, and you would then move on to item 2. And in this one, you would be actually using 4 blocks, because as you see, as we flip here to item number 2, there are 4 blocks represented here on the stimulus page. So what you would end up saying then is, watch me make my blocks look just like the picture. You would then over here in your model area, set up your blocks and model them to be exactly like the picture. From there, you would take 4 separate blocks. You would place them in front of the client, and you would say, now you make one look just like this. Work as fast as you can and tell me when you are finished. Go ahead. And you would start timing. For this one, this is where they allow 45 seconds for the client, or the child in this case, to actually physically manipulate their blocks and make them look exactly like the picture. Now we'll skip ahead here for a second and we'll talk really briefly about what if you have a client that is between the ages of 8 years old and up to 16 years old. Well, the process is very similar. They would actually start here on item 3. And what you would end up doing after you have already introduced the blocks just like before is you would say, watch me make my blocks look just like this. And here in your model area, you would make your blocks look just like the picture. From there, you would grab 4 separate blocks and you would say, now you make one like this. Work as fast as you can and tell me when you are finished. Go ahead. You would then begin timing, and the child would have approximately 45 seconds to finish the design, and so on and so forth. Now, one of the important things that I would like you to remember is, and you saw me do it there a second ago, is how I actually go about presenting the blocks to your client. So here are the general rules for what you need to remember in terms of however many blocks you are presenting to the client, or the child in this case, is also dependent on what type of the faces of the blocks need to be facing up. So here is the general rule. So for items that have only 2 blocks, which in this case is only item 1, you need to have different sides facing up. So when you are presenting it to the patient, what you don't want is for the same color face to be showing. All you need to do is just make sure that they have different colors facing up. It does not matter if you have a red and a white, or a red and a half red, half white. they cannot just be the same colors. They can't be both red. They can't be both solid. They cannot be both half red, half white. They need to just be different colors. Now, for items with 4 blocks, so again, we have 4 blocks here, only one of these blocks should have a red and white side facing up. So when presenting them to the client, you can see here we have 2 that have both red and white facing up. In this case, we would just want to change that. According to the WISC manual, it does not matter what other colors are showing, as long as there is at least one that has a red and a white side facing up. Now, finally, for items with 9 blocks, so again, we have all of our blocks here, all 9 of them. When giving them to the patient to actually complete block design, 2 of the blocks, so only 2 blocks should have a red and white side facing up. So when giving these all to the patient, we want to make sure, much like I have here, that we only have 2 blocks that have a red and a white side facing up. All of the other blocks, the faces, the ones that are up, can be any color that they are. I would personally encourage you not to have like all red. You should have a nice little variety of both red and white sides facing up. But that is how it should look when you are presenting these blocks or giving them to, excuse me, the child to complete block design. Otherwise, block design, much like in the WAIS, is very straightforward. You still need to watch out for reversal rules and for discontinuation criteria. So I'll have the record form here for you. Much like in the WAIS version of the block design, the reversal rule says that any imperfect scores on 2 of the start points, so if it's start point number 1, start point number 3 or number 4 in this case, you have to reverse your administration to go backwards until 2 consecutive perfect scores are obtained, along with the discontinuation criteria of 2 as well. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. It's a very brief introduction into block design. If you do have additional questions, please be sure to let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day.